Ever wonder if there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe? Well, I have. I've been wondering since I was a kid. My name is Reuben Langdon, and on March 29th, 2007, in the middle of the day, I saw a number of strange objects in the sky. Coincidentally, I was working on the film Avatar at the time, playing an alien. And ever since then, I've been on a quest. A quest to find out if aliens really do exist, and if so, are they here, with us? If beings of higher intelligence are here, what is their purpose? Why don't they make themselves more known? Why the secrecy? I've asked these questions to many experts, yet each seems to have a different theory. So I thought to myself, why not ask the aliens directly? So that's what I set out to do. Well, sort of.
Hello, Treb.
Yes, good evening, Reuben.
Good to speak to you again.
Yes, it is very exciting to speak to you and be with you again.
I've been looking forward to having this conversation, this kind of one-on-one conversation for not only myself, but for our audience today, which is my show, Interview with Ed, Extra Dimensionals. And I consider you a fine example of this extra-dimensional energy we have with us.
Yes, and I find you to be a very great example of an extra-dimensional as well.
Oh, excellent. So, in your terms, would you consider all of humans extra-dimensional?
Yes, in the perceptions of extra-dimensional, it is meaning, if we concern ourselves with trying to find the word, what we find, the extra meaning more than, and you are more than the dimensional beings that you are, but you are also more than the entities that we are able to perceive from another density or dimension as well.
I see. So from your perspective, we are kind of like you are for us.
Yes, very much so.
Awesome. So could you explain a little bit about yourself and where you come from, your planet, and just a little history for our audience to get to know you?
Yes, first of all, we wish to express to you that if you are looking at who we are or what we are, it is most easily expressed as the human collective perceiving and labeling the specific concept of a reptilian hybrid human. And in this concept, it means that a version of humans long ago took their own DNA and manipulated the DNA of a second density being or an animal with an entity that is much as your reptilians on Earth, your reptilian animals. And in that concept, they created our own race. If you are looking at the concept of what my name is, Treb is something that I am often referred to, and more so directly now than previously. But before, when entering the Earth collective consciousness, I shared a name that represented my energy. In the environment that we have, there is no words, there is only telepathy. So giving a name to humans was something that we thought was very important. So in the name that we have given humanity, it is TReb and Bor and yit-NE. And if you put it together, TReb Bor yit-NE, this is a representation of the energy. This gives you a great detail of where I am from. The first part of the name TReb, this part is my own energy, my own family lineage and DNA. And when you are looking at the concept of Bor, this represents a quadrant within the planet. If you divide a planet into 4 parts, which represents the certain portion of the planet and where I reside, then you look at Yit, and this represents the entire planet, which is the 3rd planet outward from our star. And then you use the word NE, which is the star in which we reside. And if you are looking from Earth up into the sky, you see a star that is known as Capella. And this star is not just one star, it is actually 4 stars. And in the 4 stars, there are 2 stars that are much as your star, very whitish yellow in color, very large in nature, but much larger than your planet stars. And the other 2 are very small and dim red stars. I reside within the largest of the 2 red stars on the 3rd planet outward. And what is even more extension upon the name that we have given, it also represents a great connection to the host. If you look at the word TReb Bor yit-NE, if you look at it in a different fashion, you will notice that the host name is very well connected with mine within that meaning. So these 2 energies are ones that are very representational of who I am, where I am from, and how I exist, with nothing more to add besides the fact that if you look in your dimension upon my own star and planet, there is no inhabited life, but that is because we are existing on a higher density known to you as the 5th density.
So if we were to look in our Capella star system, let's say we had a super powerful telescope like the Kepler or the Hubble, would we be able to see the stars, the 4 stars you speak of?
Yes, it is already understood by some scientists within your planet, although it is not always widely agreed upon. But yes, there is an understanding of us being a quadrastar system.
And even the smaller red, you said a red dwarf stars?
Yes, we believe that your scientists know of this, but we cannot be sure.
I see.
In the host understanding, there is some understanding of this within your own planet, although it is not completely agreed upon.
I see. And would we even be able to identify with our telescopes the planet, your planet?
Within the red stars, you would not be able to. If you look into the larger stars, there could be if your technology was better. But in your density that you are experiencing now, 3rd density, much of the planets that are within the 4-star system are not at all suitable for life or suitable for incarnations, although 2 specific do carry what you perceive as 2nd density beings.
Good, this gets me on something I was going to think about asking later, but since we're already in this topic, because right now Earth is in a 3rd, 4th density classification, we are only able to perceive things, the majority, I guess, of the human race would only be able to perceive things on a 3rd, 4th density scale. Is that correct in saying this?
Yes, this is what we have labeled the 3rd to 4th density exchange. Even though we perceive you as 4th density beings, it is the perception within yourselves that can be adjusted to see yourself as more than 3rd density.
And would it be safe to say that some humans can actually perceive 5th density, 6th, and even up to 7th density in humanity? Are there these select individuals who might be able to do this?
Yes, in fact, it is more than just a select few. Each and every one of you are peering into the higher fourth densities and even the fifth when you are sleeping.
I see. So right now, because we are at third, fourth, or fourth, still believing we're in the third, and we use our technology to perceive out into the galaxy, and we see these planets that appear to be inhabitable, that's only because the density that we're seeing at is that case.
Yes, this is the case for some planetary consciousnesses, but that is more dependent on the planetary collective agreement on how to produce itself or how to project itself in each density.
Would it be safe to say that in evolution, for example, humanity is evolving from this third to fourth density and then going eventually into fifth and sixth density, we hope, that it's in a linear timeline sense in the future, in our future, from the human perspective. So if we were to go to the fifth density consciousness, would we actually see ourselves, let's say on Earth, would we see ourselves in a higher versions of ourselves?
Yes, there are ways to do this, but when you transcend into that fifth density consciousness, the only way that you will be able to see yourself in that is to look within the mirror. As you are joining the fifth density consciousness, you would be within your own body, and this is what gives humanity a very unique essence within the galaxy, that you are one of a small amount or a small percentage of groups that actually have multidimensional DNA throughout all densities. So as you peer into the fifth density, you are just shifting into your fifth density physical body to perceive, and that is much different than another entity who might not have multidimensional DNA, who would look into a higher density through meditation or manifestations of astral projections. And these entities would be able to look as a third party or an external variety.
So the saying that all lies within really holds truth with the human DNA, human collective consciousness.
Yes, very much so.
So all the answers to all the different densities, to everything, all we have to do is go within ourselves, where maybe other races really do have to look externally.
Yes, and it is not as much as they have to look externally, as they still have their ability to connect to higher consciousness or higher portions of consciousness, but it is a mechanism that many races use for their own style of manifestating a certain variety of expansion or growth spiritually, mentally, and physically as well.
Interesting, fascinating. So in humans today, this is kind of a common theme that I keep getting from my interviews with all these different extra dimensional beings and collectives, that humanity is going through this ascension, this shift into consciousness. Would you say this is from third density into fourth, or actually into the fifth density consciousness? I hear the term fifth dimension a lot thrown around. Can you give us your perspective on this?
Yes, it is third density to fourth density, but it also is fourth dimensional to fifth dimensional. You are gaining two thresholds at once, and in fact, the way that we divide densities, the way that we incorporate conscious integration, but also the concept of looking at the evolution of a certain energy aspect of creation, what we are doing is placing the threshold from third to fourth density in the fact that you are changing fourth to fifth dimensional, and that together is very important.
Yes. Okay. So you would agree with the others in this ascension process? Humanity's going through this.
Yes, very much so.
How far along are we? Are we in the middle, or does it happen overnight? Is it a process? I'm assuming it's a process. It seems to be, but could you tell us define this a little bit for us?
Yes. When you are looking at third to fourth density, this is why we label third to fourth density exchange, because the level that you are, it is literally just in the beginning. You are just crossing that threshold and trying to fully integrate. If you are looking at yourself in a non-physical standard, your essence of your soul and the portions of fractal consciousness that are within you, what you will see that is very interesting is the fact that you are already physically in fourth density. So in that aspect, overnight, you are a fourth density being, but the experience and the drag of the exchange or the energetic change is very slow within your own race, or very gradual, let us use, instead of slow. And the gradualness comes from the conditioning of mankind, but also personal beliefs that each and every one of you hold. When you look upon this, it is a very personal journey. We are not saying that all of mankind will do one thing or the other, but what we will say is that each and every one of you have your individual opportunity to pass the threshold of third to fourth exchange and enter into a full daily fourth density self. And there are some entities upon the planet that already are.
So if there's some that already are, is there much time for us to go through this? I guess time is relative to where each and every individual, but is there a general kind of collective timeline that we might be able to, you might be able to share with us?
Yes. When you look at the physics portions of how the energy works and how it exchanges with human consciousness, there is a certain time. If you look, it is an 18-year full cycle, 9 years before the 2012 area, but also 9 years afterwards. The precipice is in the 2012. So 9 years before, you are going to the top of the energy, and then now you are going back down. This does not mean that the full portion of evolution must be done within this 18-year period, but what it does mean is that that energy in itself is prime for doing so.
I see.
Let us express also that when you are looking at the concept of evolution and how long it will take, there is no true timeline for this, as even before the 9 years you were evolving and expanding, and after the 9 years you will continue to do so. It could take certain individuals even 1,000 years to finish the third to fourth density exchange and fully be into the fourth density, but for the collective, we perceive that it will be much sooner.
Many times this term harmonic convergence has been thrown around, and the date or the year that's given is 1987. Does this harmonic convergence in this date have anything to do with this ascension process?
Yes, let us explain. This portion can be very technical, but we will give you the simplest version that we can.
Okay.
The way that the ascensional energy works through co-creation is that the center of the physical galaxy puts out energy and projects it into the entirety of the galaxy. And as it is doing this, there is a certain pattern that is made. But more importantly than the pattern that is made, there is an energetic energy that flows through it. It is flying through areas very quickly. And what the harmonic convergence was something akin to air pressure changes when you are flying. It felt the energy coming. It was a cold front or a warm front before the energetic change that came in. And the harmonic convergence was you feeling the repercussions of the cold front or warm front, as we would prefer, moving in.
Ah, I see. So before this start of this main cycle, that if you said 9 years, I guess that's 2003?
Yes!
So the harmonic convergence was us feeling that this 2003 big download of energy is coming.
Yes, and to put it in another way, that is the buffer area before the point of energy in its arrival.
Fascinating. I'm going to change the subject a little bit and kind of go into more about yourself. Rob told us a lot about his connecting with you and how that all came about. I'd like to know from your perspective, the opposite. How did you go about connecting with Rob?
Yes, first of all, we must address the difference in the energy of the host and myself. And when you are looking at this, you see two entities that share an oversoul. And
okay.
we believe that you have an understanding or a foreshadowing of what oversouls mean.
I do, but maybe our audience does not fully. There may be some in the audience that fully do not understand this. So could you please define the oversoul idea?
Yes! What an oversoul is one energy that is very large, non-physically, and it incorporates many smaller energies. And the mindset of an oversoul is to feel experiences, to have energetic understandings of a certain reality it wishes to create. So one oversoul gathers with many other oversouls to agree upon a concept of creating a planet, of creating an entire situation, and the certain ideals that are within the galactic consciousness that it wishes to express in the physical reality are then manifested physically, and then your earth becomes created. And as it creates, each oversoul takes small portions, or what we would call fractals, of energy from itself. And what it does is it puts an intent that is so large to experience something physical that it is able to molecularly form into a physical thing. So first an oversoul will create physical things as rocks, what you would know to be first density beings. Then it will create certain bacterias, and then animals, and then human beings. And what the oversoul is a combination of all of the smaller parts that are added together for the entirety of the experience. Now, we do not wish to get off topic, but we do wish to express that when you see the evolution of the planet in your scientific needs, this is very appropriate and very correct in our perception, but it was not physical things that decided to evolve through chemical reactions, although it was physically. The undertone of that is a manifestation of the desire for new experiences. So if you think of the oversoul, remind yourself that it requires experiences. Now back into the conversation of my own connection with the host,
Yes.
what we would say is that both of us are different pieces of the oversoul. We share the same oversoul and are energetically linked. And in my own mission to connect to humans, my desire, my passion to connect to humanity, there were several different entities on your planet, several consciousnesses that I felt a resonance with, that were vibrationally matching my own understanding and connectability. And in those several entities, all of their desires were to connect outside of themselves, in their own perception outside of themselves. So in that perception, there were excitements. And my own resonance level, as well as gauging the excitement of the prospects of entities to connect with, the host was one who was very passionate and very desiring to connect. My desire and his desire are what connected us.
Have you been able to connect with some of these other energies on the planet that you said are similar?
Yes, I have been able to connect to a great vast amount of human consciousnesses since connecting with the host.
I see. So the host, Rob, was sort of this catalyst to open up a door full of connective doorways for your energy to connect with others.
Yes, in people and humans that are listening to the channeled material that we are sharing, who listen to either the host or myself, or even auditive sharing, what they are doing is placing a vibration of desire to connect to me more directly, a desire to connect to my own energy and heart. And in doing this, it calls out our own energy, just as if you are calling a phone and saying, I wish for TReb to pick up the other line. That brings my energy in to co-create with many humans. So I have connected to humans through conscious connections. I have connected to humans through sleep state, and I have connected to them energetically.
Does it, now that you're sort of out there in this consciousness of the humans, is it taxing? Is it hard to connect with so many people? Does it become tiring eventually?
Yes, no, this is not taxing whatsoever.
Okay.
It is a very common question if I become too busy,
Yes.
if I will stop connecting. But in my intent to connect to humanity, I have several points of focus within my own consciousness, and those portions of focus are able to connect to different points at many times. If you are thinking of the concept of the greatest multitasker that you are aware of within this planetary consciousness, take this and perhaps times it by 100,000, and this is my own capability. When I am connecting humans, I am using a small portion of consciousness, even when I am connecting to the host through this verbal mechanism that you call channeling. I am using a very small percentage, but there is even less percentages used when I am connecting to entities, both in the dream state or through mind telepathy, or even through circumstances that are seeming to be synchronistic and energetic in nature. So as you are perceiving all of those things, that is how I connect to humans. But in the concept of connecting to the host, there is a percentage where I'm connecting to him more directly. And that is when he is in the state that you perceive as channeled, then I am connecting to him with much more of my energy in more of a physical sense.
I guess two questions about multitasking. In the human perspective of multitasking, we're told on our news channels and our doctors say that we're very inefficient when we multitask. And a lot of us drink a lot of coffee and caffeine in order to do such things. In your perception, does it take away from anything else that you're doing?
Yes, the question in general is one that is very difficult for many entities who do not do the same that I do to perhaps comprehend. The physical nature of multitasking for humans is much different than the energetic multitasking that we do. In our own perception, physically, we are able to focus our energy in one part at one time, perhaps doing many things at once, but not in the essence that the energy is. The level of consciousness and the amount of consciousness that is available to us is highly extensive. When you are thinking of many concepts, for instance, watching a sport, you are watching the clock, you are watching the fans' reactions, you are watching the team's offense and the team's defense and how the plays are working, the coach's communication, each one of their individual connections and how the plays are unfolding. So in that essence, you are able to focus on much more than you realize. The brain organ is one that helps you fill in the holes that consciousness is not necessarily needing to connect to in those essence, as it is more of an intuitive understanding or just an integration. But in the multitasking concepts, it is not harmful, and humans are going to develop much more of this with their energy. In the way that you would experience the multitasking of thought and concentration on the football games or whatever sports you desire, the same concept goes with us, but just to a different degree.
I see. So that makes an easier to classify. It's more of a mental multitasking than a physical, where human beings like to physically multitask, and eventually, we fumble the ball, so to say, in sports terms.
In that essence, it is not necessarily a mental one either.
Oh.
There is no thought process that must go into it. It is more of an energetic absorption.
I see.
Let us use a small example. Let us say that I am speaking to 5 entities at once.
Yes.
I do not need to run each of the 5 conversations from my own mental point of view or my own day-to-day mind. What happens is those portions of consciousness are an extension of my excitement to connect to them, of my own desire to communicate, and because they are so in touch with myself and so in touch with my energy, they know how to communicate directly on their own, so there is no focus that must be put on it. It is only dependent on the amount of energy that I give out to each interaction.
Understood. So, can I use this analogy? It's not happening right now on the planet, I don't think it is, but for example, we have a movie star, Tom Cruise. He makes many movies and many people fall in love with his movies, and people feel this connection to the actor, Tom Cruise, through these video outlets. Let's say you were Tom Cruise, or Tom Cruise is a fifth dimensional being. Would he be able to feel every time someone watched a movie and made that connection and felt his energy? Would he be able to feel that as a fifth dimensional being?
Yes, to an extent,
Okay.
there would be that understanding, but it is greatly dependent upon the certain entity and their own desires of what to experience. If they did not care about who was watching or who was connecting or who was emotionally, then the sensations would be much duller, such as a quick passing sound in your ear. But in the concept of focusing on the intent to love and to connect with those, then it could be very intimate in the way that they experience it.
Wow. And I guess in your case, because you have an interest to connect with humanity, then it is a more intense feeling, a more intense experience.
Yes, this is very true.
Excellent. Wow. So, okay, well, that puts things in perspective. Thank you very much.
Yes, you are very welcome very much.
I wanted to ask about the language and English language and other entities in their language. When connecting to Rob, did you get an instant download of the English language, or did you have to learn, or how does the language exchange translation? I speak fluent Japanese, and took me a while, and I couldn't learn it overnight. I had to go study it. So how does that work?
Yes, it is not truly a learning, nor is it an energetic download. What happens is my own consciousness is integrated and ties into the host consciousness. So as you see both of us as separate beings, what happens during this state of channeling is that both of our consciousnesses meld, and in that consciousness we are working from the crown chakra of the host into the throat chakra of the host, and in that throat chakra, all of the communication capabilities that he has are readily available. So in that way, as we are co-creating both energies as one and we move into the throat chakra, there is no connection to the brain or access to the mind that we require, nor the language skills, but only the energy of communication that is resonant to the host.
So it's more of a direct, translation in a sense, but more of an energy translation than an actual physical word translation.
Yes, and in that way, when energy is off with the host, or when the energy is off with a person who is questioning or giving ideas, then the communication weakens as well. This is where you will often hear entities who channel searching for words or expressions, but there can come communication difficulties when something is untranslatable either to your experience or to your knowledge. Let us use, for instance, a certain degree of technology that we use. There is one certain part of the technology that we use that integrates certain crystalline substances into the environment that we are around, which gives us us the ability to see perhaps more of a hologram style of something that is not there in the physical nature. But because there is no one word for it, we had to use the approximate 13 seconds to explain this concept.
The approximate 13 seconds to explain. Can you explain that?
Yes. When I was just explaining what the technology was
Yes.
and what it did, instead of being able to use one word or
I
one
see.
idea, we must expand it into an approximate 13-second explanation, which now has expanded to over 45 seconds.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yes, and very exciting as well.
Okay, so I understand. So many ideas in your language which would be very quick to understand for your race or maybe even other people it takes time. It takes there's not a one word because we haven't developed that word to convey such a thing.
Yes, and also there is no intake for some humans who have not opened their intuition to just understand the concept that we mean without giving it a verbal precept.
For example, if my intuition was a little bit better, if I was paying a little more attention, I would have understood the first time in 13 seconds what you were saying as opposed to taking 45 seconds.
Yes, but it is not a lack of intuition. It is a lack of focusing on certain one energies within the whole energy.
Right. All right. Well, maybe I did that for the audience so they could really get a grasp and understanding of this concept.
Yes, and also the concept of your own focus being on the technology and on the equipment to make sure that this energy that you find so fascinating and wonderful between us when we are speaking is able to be shared with multiple people for the benefit of their happiness.
Thank you for noticing. Yes, that is.
Yes!
Sometimes I have a cameraman that helps me with this. I have Kalina here that's been super awesome in helping, but yes, it is still a concern, and I still am. Half my consciousness is out there checking the equipment, making sure it's good. But so thank you. Thank you for noticing.
Yes, that is an extension of your love for the co-creative creation of perhaps, as you would see, the collective consciousness in whole, or more so specifically for the collective consciousness of the interview program.
Thank you for seeing it for what it truly is and not as a distraction, which some people could take it the wrong way. But thank you for your...
Yes, and thank you for your own perception on how exciting it is for us to be here as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so excited. I'm almost a little nervous, a little bit to, not to mess it up and, all these thoughts that go through your head. So you want to make sure it's perfect. So
yes, and it is perfect as perfectness is dictated by excitedness, and all three of us are very excited.
Yes, we are. So let's go into a little bit of descriptions. Rob gave us some really intense descriptions of your planet and some of your history, but maybe hearing from you a little bit about your history. In the beginning, during your introduction, you did say a portion of the human consciousness. You were made up of a kind of a hybrid human reptilian, starting from the second density. And Rob has gone into detail a little bit about the Knall race, which is another version of humans. I'm quite curious to if you could expand the definition or the description of the Knall and how you came from them.
Yes. First of all, we will explain to you that the Knall race are not really a Knall race, but they are truly a future version of humans who have left their own planet in a desire to explore, to expand, and to excite themselves in many different ways. And in that form of excitement and expansion, they found a star that in your perception is called Beta Leporis, also known as Knall. And in that concept, they connected to the physical star, found a planet to inhabit, and entered that planetary consciousness. During that period, as we understood that you have heard or understood, that two creative consciousnesses that are collective by nature co-create with one another, that the attributes of both of the energies will change somewhat slightly all the way to very extremely. And in this case, due to the evolution of the co-creation, the human entities then became much shorter. In your essence, they are approximately 3'6" to 4'2", and something that is in between this. And in that creative efforts, they desired to expand, and after they learned much about what they could learn about their new solar system, about the neighboring solar systems, and in their perception, the universe at large, they became very connected and very spiritual. Now, what we mean by very spiritual is they finally found a way to connect one entity to all entities. They seen the oneness. There was no divisionary energies or concepts within their race. And at that time, they begin to have ideals of how to share their oneness with others, if an other desired it, and also devised or decided a way to co-create upon a certain larger level of galactic consciousness to share energies with him. So seeking out one energy that they wish to heal more than any was the perception of negativity when it comes to reptilian entities, knowing that humans have been harmed very deeply by at least 3 types of reptilian energies that the humans knew of before then and much after your now time period will come to understand reptilian energy more. They took this one concept and built it into a way to heal. Now, they searched the galaxy for an energy that was reptilian in nature. They also wanted to find an energy that was willing to co-create that experience with him. So in searching, they found an entity that was much as your lizards upon Earth or your reptilian entities, and they took the DNA from that and mixed it with their own to create new third density consciousness.
I see.
That race is the race that I now inhabit, but the 5th dimensional, or let us say 5th density version, is more precise. And in that 5th density version, we look back at ourselves in 3rd density, and we do not see the human part of our lineage, but we see the 3rd density, as humans would call it, yit lineage. And in that way, by creating this race, by nurturing it, by teaching it, it allowed these entities to decide and choose to be at one with one another, which is against the prototype, if you will, of reptilian energy in this galaxy, or the way that reptilian energy manifests itself into the galaxy. And by going against that grain, it opened an opportunity to not only expose the humans that remained on Earth or humans that were scattered throughout the galaxy, but also many other types of different races as avian entities or other reptilian races as well. This also gave way for the reptilian race that was new, our own 3rd density race, to be an example for those entities that are perceived as type 2, who were not necessarily benevolent, but working towards benevolent. It gave them an example to be led by. It gave them an energetic excitement to see that being a type 1 entity was possible.
So would your race be one of the first in the galaxy, if we're looking at a linear evolutionary timeline, of benevolent reptilians?
Yes, this is not necessarily the case.
Okay.
It is the first recognized by the human race to a degree, but there are also many that preceded us in type 1 or benevolent type 2. It is just that the energy that is there is less noticeable. It is much as if you see a silver penny in the midst of silver dimes. You would not be very likely to notice it because it was not very seeable to the galaxy due to the percentage of entities that are type 2 or strictly malevolent. It is very difficult to discern the difference of energies.
And your race is a type 1?
Yes, our own race is a type 1 energy, which we believe has been expressed to you.
Yes, Rob explained that the other day. So to back up a little bit, the Knall, I guess, what density were they when they co-created this new race on another planet? They were humans, but at what density?
In that density, they are at the end of the fourth density.
Okay.
It was a race that was finishing their fourth density cycle, entering the fifth density. And as they are finishing that, they worked directly with our race, manifesting themselves both physically and psychically to connect to our race.
Would the Knall experience be similar? Yesterday, Ardif was talking about him coming from an ancient Palladian race, going off to a new planet and sort of starting their own thing. Would this be similar? Could we compare the two?
Yes, it is very similar in the way that leaving one area of energy, going to the next, allows you to expand, allows you to research more parts of your own energy. Because you know that co-creating with two collectives, both the planetary collective and the human collective in their new planet, creates new energy. It also creates a new experience to be had. Not just, yes, we are moving to a planet and yes, we are doing new things, but what we mean by this is a new manifestation for a soul's desire and a soul's ability to have a physical existence.
Could you put a time frame, years approximately, on how long it took the human race to get to this Knall end of the fourth density evolutionary period, to leave the planet to start elsewhere?
Yes, if you are looking in the linear time,
Right.
humans in this point still have the ability to grow into that timeline of the Knall race. And in that essence, it is approximately 3,200 years from this point.
So in that case, if in our history, which we now are creating, this history of TReb visiting us, and we stick to that timeline, we will literally be knowing sort of that we will be going to do, almost predicting the future in a way right now with this dialogue and this conversation.
Yes, in some ways it is well understood, but understanding that in 3,200 years in your linear future, although they will be aware of the host, although they will be aware of me, it will be at some level an obscurity in the larger essence, although people will understand what channeling is at that point, although they understand, there will be so many channelers between then and there that the host and my own self will not be buried at the bottom, but will be less understood or less known to most people. And in that way, although they understand energetically, it will not interfere with any certain levels of energy unless the co-creative groups of entities that are collected by nature come into the awareness of the work and start to plan to do that by then. But even then, synchronicities find a way to either link them to that reality or to not, depending upon their focus. What we can tell you is that the entities that are connecting and growing as the Knall will be well aware of positive reptilian energy well before then, so it will not be a great surprise to anyone if someone were to bump in to this very audio recording in which we are creating today.
Wow. So, and I was going to say, moving forward in the future, I would hope to, and I'm sure Rob and many others watching this would hope to actually have more interactions, potential physical interactions with the yit-NE race. And by doing so, I'm assuming would create a separate timeline that is not one of the Knall. We would kind of have a whole different experience. Is that correct in saying that?
Yes, that is very correct in saying this, and understanding that although we are our own race, although the Knall was their own, although you are your own, the co-creation mechanism that has started can allow your experience not to be the Knall, but still have the Knall and myself within your awareness.
Right. Has the Knall ever come back in time to visit our current collective consciousness?
Yes! In fact, it is not the necessary nature to come look back at your race, but their entirety of their race traveled backwards into time. This is why, although they are future humans, this time in which they occurred and connected to the reptilian entities to create our race was considered your linear past.
Our linear past. Okay, wait, I'm a little confused with that statement. Could you repeat it one more time and maybe let me digest it? Let me really focus on it. Say that.
Yes! What we are saying
Yes.
is that your future version, which is the Knall
Yes.
race, moved the entirety of their race backwards in linear time so that they may create an experience in where my own race and your race is speaking in the present right now with both of our consciousnesses in the present. If you were to look at the concept of future humans being the Knall, and then in the future they create a race that is reptilian, and then they evolve, it would be several hundreds of thousands of years in the future, but we are yet sitting in the same time, and it is not just because I exist in any time I desire, which is part of it, but it is not the entirety of how our race was created and connected. If you look at our timelines, both the Yit collective and the human collective are within the same time period.
You're saying Knall collectively as a race kind of backed themselves up in timelines, and so they could interact with humanity directly and indirectly by creating the reptilian benevolent yit-NE race to help humanity with its reptilian issues.
Yes, this is somewhat appropriate perhaps. In the concept of them going back in time, this is correct. But what we are saying more directly is due to circumstances within their own race, the entirety of the race moved backwards into time, not just for the reflection of humanity for that, but for various other amounts of things. They did not directly interact with the past versions of themselves, but they did connect to them through creating our race. Our race was more than just the human collective, although that was in the front of their minds. So to simply put this, the Knall moved back in time, then developed us, and then we grew. And now we are within the same exact time period that you are now. As you speak to entities, you ask them, in what time do you exist? And some will answer 400 years in the future, 5,000 years in your past. But we exist not just because time dictates we are always in the now, but linearly we are in your now moment as well.
That was going to be my following question. How many years, so after the 3,200 years of the Knall forming their new race, how many years after that did it take to form your race? But then you answered that question by saying the Knall went back in time to sort of sync up this experience. So
yes.
Awesome. So yes, so that kind of leads me into this next series of questions with this whole concept. And even I, and many humans on this planet many people don't even know about reptilians and could care less, but many who are in spiritual communities and listen to different material from David Icke and others, sort of have this perception that the reptilian consciousness, the reptilian beings have taken over our world and our governments, and they're very evil and they're very bad. And even before going to see you and talk with you in Asheville, North Carolina a while back, I even had to kind of work through these belief systems that have been created through this collective consciousness idea that the reptilians are bad and they're going to get us. And here you are, this loving being that is the total opposite of any kind of evil, bad reptilian. So now I'm understanding that this is kind of by design. You're here connecting with us, probably for many reasons, but one of them being this kind of to help humanity get over its collective ideas and belief systems over the negative reptilian experience.
Yes, this is a very true concept and very resonant to the way that we perceive ourselves sharing us with your own race. In the way that we see, there is a perception of perhaps negativity in your own race when it comes to reptilians, but this is something that is within the galaxy for many humanoid races, especially those that are either energetically linked to humanity or byproducts perhaps, or perhaps descendants is a better way to express this, of your own race. So in that way, there is a negative perception, but also it comes to what you see and what you experience is within your perceptionary realm, which then becomes your reality. And as we have expressed previously, at least 3 reptilian races that humans are aware of now have had negative experiences in history with humans. But there is also a bigger concept that within this galaxy, 80 to 85% of all reptilian energies or reptilian entities are of the polarity of either very negative in nature, or how you would perceive negative, malevolent would be a word that you would describe, all the way up into entities that are more on the benevolent type 2 variety and everything that is within. Most of the 80 to 85% is within the malevolent to right below what you would consider a benevolent reptilian to be, even though it is approximately the energy of how humans behave as a collective today. Some energies are indifferent, some are loving, and some are separate. But in that energy that describes the majority of reptilian energy within this galaxy, so most people express if 8 times out of 10 or 9 times out of 10 I see something occur, then that is my new reality and new belief. Therefore, it is expressed and experienced as such.
Is it true then that reptilians have come to this earth and mixed with humans and are sort of in the government, and we hear the rulers of the world, the Illuminati, so to say, and the Anunnaki, we hear this term a lot. Is that a reptilian consciousness? Is that what's going on here?
Yes! And this is something that we speak of freely, but we always predetermine to express perhaps a disclaimer is the word that you use. When thinking of these concepts and ideas, it creates a great deal of fear. Therefore, we wish for you to listen more with your heart than your mind. And by expressing this, we will tell you that you are very correct in this concept. The entities that have exchanged energy with humanity, that have taught a system that is based upon fear or closing or division of consciousness, this is a very reptilian in nature. The ones mostly responsible for this is what you would perceive to be the ancient reptilians, or alpha draconians are another term that is given for these entities. These entities are the embodiment of complete disconnection within the spectrum of consciousness. When you see a type 1 race, you see all that accept and love one another. They see that the entity across from them is the same as they are, that there is no division, that there is complete connection in actually a projection of what is within you. And in the type 2 variety on the far end of the spectrum, we see an energy that has divided themselves from every other thing in existence. The only connection that they see is what they are able to draw within their mind. such as the ancient reptilians, have a very fierce and great love for one another. They treat each other with the utmost respect by human standards. They are very nice and loving with one another. But if they were to see someone that was outside of their agenda or outside of their own race, they would not consider their feelings. They would be very happy to infringe upon the free will of those entities. So in that essence, it is very reptilian in nature, and yes, it is very occurring in your collective consciousness. But the division of this consciousness comes from your own decision to be within your own self and to be excited and to see the oneness that is within you manifested out, to understand that all things outside of you are a reflection from what is within. So if the Earth collective consciousness is manifesting a reality in where reptilians are co-creating laws and rules within their own environment, that this means there is a part of you that is within, that is fighting for liberty, that feels enslaved, that does not feel as if they have the freedom they desire. So the more that you see yourself as free, the more that you see yourself as non-dependent on rules and laws, and see yourself as the ultimate creator of expansive energy of the galactic presence, then you can shift yourself into a reality where the reptilian presence is either no longer needed, accepted, or even if they are and they are standing next to you, they cannot affect you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's. I'll add to the disclaimer, and based on my perception and teachings from yourself and other amazing channeled work, is that yes, we humans, everything is a choice, and we can choose to give away our power and have this reptilian experience, this alpha draconian, because I don't want to ball all the reptilians in one category now. We can have this alpha draconian experience, or we can have our own sovereign human experience, or whatever label you want to put on it, our own experience. Type 1, I like this type 1 idea. We can be a type 1 or we can be a type 2, and it's a choice. And we're now kind of at this crossroads right now where a lot of us humans are kind of deciding we don't want to do the type 2 thing. We want to kind of go type 1, and there's a bit of a split because maybe some of the humans choose to stay in type 2 mentality. Is this what's going on with the human consciousness right now?
Yes, this is very much aligned with the concepts that we have shared previously. Right. When you are seeing the type 2 energy, you see that many humans are in that energy, and even if you desire to shift into the type 1, you do not necessarily have to have the type 2 energy reflected into your environment. And this is where it gets highly extensive in the concepts of treating your own reality and creating aspects of your own consciousness. But in this way, as you have spoken of the division of 2 worlds or 2 energies, that concept is very simple in the way that humans can either experience their favorite manifestations of either going into a type 1 environment and being connected with all that is and growing in a collective way, or they can go into a reality where within their own collective consciousness there is a higher level of division, but also a higher level of excitement for their division. So either way you are looking at both of these as a reality. Just remind yourself that you can shift into any of those you decide, and that within the 2 varieties we have given you, there are literally infinite amounts of probabilities in a way to manifest both of these.
And one isn't necessarily better or worse. They're both just choices, neutral choices.
Yes, and this is something that we find very exciting for someone to express verbally, as most entities have perceived the concept that if you are going into type 2, that it will be a very horrible and fearful and hellish experience. But it is not that cut and dry. It can be if you desire it to be, but in that division. If you enjoy being yourself, and if you enjoy separating yourself from other perhaps races or individuals or ideals or religion, then perhaps this is a very good road for you to go. And it does not mean you will have a negative time. In fact, you may have just as good as a time as you would in the type 1. And the neutrality of the energy is all for you to define yourself in a decision, in action, in a belief, so that it may manifest itself into any reality that fits you. So one concept that we have shared more than anything is do not let your heart fret over the details. Just be yourself, and your path is automatically chosen for you in each of your decisions and in each shift of energy in each moment.
Exactly. No, I understand that concept very well, and am very allowing for those who choose to follow this more alpha draconian path. By all means, please go and explore that. And it's not for me though, and so like you're saying, we could be literally standing next to each other, but because our vibrational frequencies are so different, we won't even kind of exist in different realities.
This is very true. We also wish to express something that is a misconception of many humans that we have spoken to. Mm-hmm. When you see a type 1 entity, you see one type of entity, one archetype of a character. When you see type 2, you see a secondary archetype. But what we can tell you is that the type 1, yes, it is very similar in the mindset and the feeling. So an archetype is very fitting for this. But in the type 2 area, the arena of consciousness and the spectrum goes from a very disconnected embodiment, such as the draconian or the ancient reptilian energy, all the way to the most loving human who still has problems with connecting themselves. So if you see an entity that is very kind and gentle and loving, but cannot find a way to integrate them into others' lives, or who hates a certain thing about their existence or a certain persona or personage, this is the spectrum that type 2 is. So there are very many type 2 races that you interact with frequently, who are loving, who care about humanity, but just do not see the lack of division that there is within the entire consciousness of both the galaxy and the universal consciousness as well.
Let's see. Well, there's something for everyone out there, basically. Right?
Yes!
So we just have to just follow, like you said, follow our own hearts, and that will take us closer to others who share those same belief systems and same ideas, and then we can just co-create with those people.
Yes, that is a very exciting concept, and hopefully a very liberating one to many humans.
Yes. It has, once I've really grasped this concept, it's been very liberating for me, and I really enjoy, not thinking the Illuminati or the lizards are going to get me, and that kind of, buying into those ideas, because you don't have to live your life like that. It's not necessary.
Yes, and if you do decide to live your existence as that, it is a very valuable experience for the Oversoul, but ultimately it is your decision how to exchange belief systems one for the other, or how to live in lack of fear or in abundance of fear.
You mentioned that your race had expanded from, I guess, third density consciousness to fifth density consciousness because of a war. And could you define how that evolution happened? What were the mechanisms that created this evolutionary jump and shift in consciousness?
Yes. First of all, we are going to set a reference for you.
Thank you.
That in a time period that we were third density into fourth, we experienced a great deal of fearfulness, and it was not set as a fear such as humanity. It was not as intense as the level of fear that humanity often springs to. But in our fear, we had understood that the Alpha Draconian entities, or the ancient reptilians, were placing very many posts within the galaxy for a war that was occurring elsewhere, and that within our own star system there were already inhabitants of certain varieties of energies that were tied to the reptilian or the ancient reptilian energy. So as our race began to fear, it co-created an experience in where, shifting into consciousness of fourth density, we began to draw in more of that Alpha Draconian energy on a co-creative level. So as that began to shift, there was an attack that killed the majority of our planet's race. A very small number was left comparatively. And in that feeling, there was a great fear of sadness, there was a great deal of disconnection, there was a great deal of feeling sorry for ourselves and what we had experienced. But after this, there were a great deal of many races that were coming to our aid. The Knall as one of them, giving us love, giving us expressions of energy and both physical things that helped us with our recovery. But in this concept, after we rebuilt our society, physically there were still emotional scars. We still felt a need for a defensive mechanism. But in the time period where we finished rebuilding the majority of our own housing and some of the emotional scars, we begin to have other reptilian races that poured into our own planet because they understood that we were very open to reptilians that were of type 1 or of type 2 on the benevolent side of the energy. So as we begin to have several different reptilian races, what we were able to do is teach them and guide them into eating certain bacterial things or certain vegetables that we were able to grow. We taught many of them agriculture and how to stay away from eating other animals. We taught them a great deal about meditation. We taught them a great deal about expressions of consciousness and how to tap into their third eye. So as these refugees entered our planet, we began to co-create more energies with them. And this caused a great healing within our own hearts because we were able to give the positivity that was given to us by our fathering or mothering race, if you will, the Knall. We were able to express that into our own teachings to other races, and that appreciation itself truly helped us heal the energetic shift from fourth density to fifth density. When we were experiencing the great growth after the beginning of fourth density into the entirety, we developed a great releasing of great fears or great imbalances or misinterpretations of energy. It gave us the great perception and thumbnail of how to achieve this.
I see. So in essence, your recovery from this war, or was it a war exactly? Were you fighting against them, or did they just come and take what they
There
wanted?
were what you would perceive as aerial attacks, where this was where most of the damage was done. In the essence of fighting, we always had trained ourselves in what you would perceive as a different style of martial arts, but we had always used this for a fun factor, for an excitement. But after that, we did develop an army that was willing to fight, and we were attacked a few times afterwards by other versions of the reptilians, entities who worked directly for the Alpha Draconian and were able to successfully defend our planet. But that was because our fear was put behind us for the most part, although there was some fear that caused the creation of the attacks. There was understanding and belief that we were possibly able to be attacked. But in that effort, we were able to overcome in whole the creation of that war.
So in the rebuilding, and did other entities, Knall and other galactic entities, come to help you defend yourselves?
In the essence of defensive mechanisms, there was no help, as it was random in the first time, and after that we took responsibility for our own well-being by changing our mental state after the refugees. And many of the refugees that were there were coming from warring races that were very skilled at the art of war, and they taught us techniques in exchange for teaching them the meditation and expansion.
When you say refugees, they were not from your race?
Yes, this is very true. There were many different reptilian races. In the most part, there were 3 different reptilian races, but in all essence, there was over 25 different races, where small portions of them trickled inward.
Oh, so they started the visitations, and you made contact outside of your race before the attack from the Alpha Draconians came?
After the attack came, after our planet was very deeply hurt and almost destroyed, many entities around the galaxy heard about our pains and suffering. Then they also heard afterwards that we had rebuilt our society and that we were very buoyant in the way that we expressed our consciousness. We were able to bounce back. But it's not buoyancy, but it is a bouncing of energy, elasticity, if you will.
Yeah.
So in that bouncing back, the rumors came to many races that were also attacked, that were reptilian in nature.
I see.
And because of their loss of home, they came to our planet to find help and to find protections.
I see. And then in turn, they helped sort of train you to defend yourselves a little bit better, and then you train them to use their mental capacity and heart capacity to kind of dissipate the warring energy.
Yes, that was not necessarily the intent. It was just to teach them how to expand because of our love for them and because of our own desire to connect to them. And after that energy dissipated, after the fear was removed, after we truly were aligned, this is where we had officially become a Type 1 race from a Type 2 that was very benevolent.
So, in a lot of ways, this is almost like I use the Obi-Wan Kenobi in our Star Wars lore, who kind of, at his passing on, he's just stopped fighting, realizing that, we're just wasting time. You can't fight the same energy, as Albert Einstein says. You cannot fix a problem with the same consciousness that was used to create it. This is essentially the evolution of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we've been hearing the same thing, and I think you guys kind of went through the same idea, right?
Yes, this is exactly the energy that resonated with us and that we were speaking of.
I see. And then after connecting with these other beings, you were able to really work through this energy, and then you elevated into the 5th density consciousness.
Yes, and more so, we became a Type 1 entity as well.
So, is it possible to meet on a physical level?
Yes, if you are speaking of physically meet in your world, in your awakened state, the concept is that we must break our consciousness into a portion to manifest a physical body that is more fitting for the 3rd to 4th density exchange. And once we are able to do that, we would physically be able to come into your reality. Although it would not be our own physical body, it would be a manifested body or a manifested body. This is very possible. In that concept, it is a division of consciousness. It is a division of abilities for understanding in the energy that is resonant, and place it into a body that is also very fitting.
I see. So for you, it would be more like a hologram, or for us too, it would be a kind of a holographic image projection of your self.
Yes, this is one way to perceive it, and in our way of perceiving it, it would not be the full essence of who you know me to be in this moment, but more so just a small portion, or an avatar, perhaps is a better way to see it.
I see. Okay.
Yes!
Well, I hope someday I get to meet your avatar, because that would be awesome. Or even, I guess, as Rob is having the conversation with you right now, in that fashion to be able to astrally project to your planet and meet you there too. By any ways, I do hope we have more conversations in the future. You're a very loving soul, and thank you for everything you're doing for humanity.
Yes, and I wish to express to you that it is a great excitement for us to communicate and co-create in this day. And although most humans do not perceive me to be of getting help by talking to humans, as they perceive me the one who gives all the help, I wish to express to you that in our exchange of energy, by the questions that you are asking and the parts of energy that I have not been asked by other entities before, or just the way you express this, it allows me to look into a part of my own energy that I have not explored previously, which allows me both to learn and expand at the same time you are, and we are very grateful for this as well. We wish to express to you that we will leave you this day in love and in light, and we will experience each other again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Treb.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
How'd it go?
How was it? How was fishing?
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
The Oversouls taking over.